Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. All the passion and the commitment and the energy and the drive to transform Africa's financial system is about to come to fruition. I would like to welcome you all to the launch of AfricaNenda, a coalition of experts in the digital payments ecosystem who are trying to accelerate inclusive payments for all. My name is Fifi Peters, and I am incredibly excited to join you today as your host in this historic event. Just a few housekeeping rules before we do get going with the program. There will be an option to hear the session in the language of your choice. If you look down at the bottom of the screen, there will be an icon there for you to select the language of your choice between English and French. To all the speakers that will be speaking here today, including myself, I would ask for us to speak slowly to ensure that the interpreters are able to relay our message efficiently to the audience. To the audience that is attending physically present now in Nairobi, I would ask that we comply with the protocols, the COVID-19 protocols there, and continue to wear our masks. And to everyone, I would just like to bring it to your attention that the session will be recorded. So I'd like to begin the session with a preamble. I have had a bank account for longer than my memory serves me. In my 20s, I had the privilege of maxing out my credit card to shop for clothing. More recently, I was able to access the various forms of relief schemes that banks here in South Africa provided to their clients. And if I had a business, I also had the option to access a loan to help my business survive in what was trying times. I, as many of you know, am the exception in Africa, because most people on this continent do not have bank accounts. Most of them are not in the formal system. And therefore, many businesses, mainly women-owned businesses, mainly businesses in the informal sector, were not able to access the help that the banking system, the formal banking system, provided. And so what we saw was that many of those businesses did not survive this past 18 months of the pandemic. What we also saw is that many people, many young people, entered the unemployment line as a result. Most of you on this call know better than I that the situation is not sustainable. We know that we need to change the system if we are truly going to build back better. You know that financial inclusion is in fact at the heart of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. And so therefore today, we are here to hear about a platform that aims to address those gaps presently in the system, a platform that hopes to give more and more people a digital identity, and a platform that hopes to give more and more people digital dignity. For the next 2 hours, you will be hearing from various speakers that have certainly had a whole lot of sleepless nights trying to put this together. You will hear a panel discussion that will also deep dive into the issue and into the challenges that do surround accelerating inclusive payments on the continent presently. We do invite you as audience members to share your experience with us today. You can reach us on social media, either Twitter or LinkedIn. And please use the hashtag AfricaNenda launch. And you can also use the hashtag I am AfricaNenda. The handle on both platforms is at AfricaNenda. With all those formalities now done, I would like to welcome our very first speaker for the session this afternoon. It is my pleasure to kick off this event by inviting Mr. Marday Venkatasamy, who is the chairperson of COMESA Business Council, to give the first keynote speech today. Mr. Venkatasamy was the president of the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce and Industry and was elevated to the rank of Commander of Star and for his outstanding services to the industry. Mr. Venkatasamy, sir, good afternoon. We look forward to hearing your thoughts on accelerating financial inclusion across the continent. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Mrs. Peters. AfricaNenda Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Robert Okola, the Vice Chairs of COMESA Business Council, Sachin and Mukai, COMESA Business Council Board of Directors who are present, the Chief Executive of COMESA Business Council, Mrs. Sandra Uwera, AfricaNenda Deputy Chief Executive, Mr. Wale Goodluck, AfricaNenda Deputy Chief Executive, Mrs. Sabine Mensah, captains of industry, commercial banks, mobile network operators, manufacturers, SMEs, fintechs, and non-banking operators, members of the press, all protocol observed. A very good afternoon to you. Et un bon après-midi à nos amis et participants francophones. It is my singular honor and privilege as the president of COMESA Business Council to give my remarks at the official launch of AfricaNenda. As COMESA Business Council, we share similar beliefs with AfricaNenda that instant and inclusive payment, as you mentioned in your introductory remarks, systems can play a pivotal role in creating universal access to financial services for many financially excluded adults and are critical to achieving universal financial inclusion in Africa by 2030. People at the bottom of the financial pyramid are often the owners of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, largely marginalized by the digital economy and operating using non-digital tools for inventory management, supplier transactions, and sale to customers. It is therefore very critical to increase volumes of cross-border transactions, financial inclusion, and the participation of MSMEs in regional trade through various initiatives, such as inclusive payment systems being championed by AfricaNenda. Ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted that we will be signing the Memorandum of Understanding with AfricaNenda, which is African-led organization created to accelerate the growth of instant and inclusive payment systems that will benefit all Africans, including the poorest and currently unbanked. The launch of AfricaNenda is the culmination of the enormous collective efforts of various stakeholder groups, herein presently namely Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, the Rockefeller philanthropic advisors, the AfricaNenda, and many more. Notable plans and strides for the recovery of our industries in this pandemic period have been made, and as a region, we have always been united by this one great goal: sustainable economic development through digital financial inclusion. Due to the adverse effect that COVID-19 has had in all aspects of our lives, we recognize more than ever the critical importance of digital financial inclusion to empowering and transforming the lives of all our people, especially the poor. Its role in improving national and regional financial stability and integrity, and its essential contribution to strong and inclusive growth in COMESA and more broadly in Africa. Distinguished delegates and participants, with this view to achieve a better cooperation, we have agreed with AfricaNenda on a number of key aspects, of which, among others, are as follows: to make resource and expertise sharing arrangements subject to internal approvals for both institutions. The activities derived therefrom will be implemented by the relevant division and/or the department within the organizations. I am therefore pleased to note that we will soon be embarking on a joint exercise on business modeling for a regional digital retail payment platform for MSMEs and technical capacity building program to exchange information and documentation necessary for the purpose of implementing activities and digital financial inclusive programs, to cooperate as to make the best use of our resources and avoid duplication of digital financial inclusive initiative within COMESA region. In the event that the implementation of specific activities requires co-financing, we shall decide to conclude appropriate co-financing agreements in accordance with the work plans of both entities, regulations, rules, and procedures, which will specify the cost or expenses relating to the activity and how they are to be borne by each party. Ladies and gentlemen, AfricaNenda has come at the right time, when digitalization, encouragingly, is one such pathway that is sure to provide an invaluable opportunity for businesses to leverage the benefits of the recently implemented Africa Continental Free Trade, ACFTA, and catalyze economic recovery in the region. That said, we cannot shy away from the acknowledgement that Africa is fully integrated on infrastructural dimensions, a vulnerability well exposed by the pandemic. And it is our sincere hope that AfricaNenda will assist in resolving such challenges. Promotion of affordable technology-enabled interventions that can facilitate access to mobile phones can go a long way in enhancing uptake of digital services. It is therefore a pleasure to reiterate that we are united here for the same purpose of creating inclusive economies in which growth enterprises can launch themselves into broader value chains and thrive in the regional market. The CBC Digital Financial Inclusion for SMEs program is one of the regional initiatives that catalyze this agenda based on the level 1 design principles. Indeed, we are inspired by the partnership that have developed between the CBC and AfricaNenda within the regional digital financial inclusion ecosystem. It is in the spirit of this very collaboration that in the past year we reviewed and validated the national policy areas that we agreed upon by 6 sectoral work groups to be harmonized at regional level, forming the basis upon which a digital integrated regional common payment platform is to be developed. In respect to the above, we are looking forward to the support and technical expertise of AfricaNenda towards the development of regional digital financial inclusion program in the following areas, among others: development of business modeling for digital retail payment platform, public-private dialogue on business modeling regarding digital retail system, model policy framework and rule book for digital retail payment platform, and digital financial literacy program for MMSEs in the COMESA region, and then pre-op project design and implementation for CBC regional digital retail payment platform. In summing up, it is clear that we have a huge task ahead of us. The circumstances we are owing to the pandemic demand that each of us do more in our respective capacities. There is no simple solution to addressing financial exclusion. However, this initiative will undoubtedly greatly complement others in the region that aim to enhance continental trade flows, which is central to our regional integration agenda. I thank you all for your attention.
And thank you to you, sir, Mr. Venkatasamy, for those illuminating words. So just to ask you a question on financial integrity that you spoke of, and a financial integrity in which many women saw stripped from them, put bluntly, as a result of the pandemic falling more disproportionately on their businesses. What, in your view, sir, do you think as a community that an inclusive payment system can promote further access for women and women entrepreneurs to financial services?
I'm pretty sure of that the objective of this digital financial inclusion, especially for women, will be met. We are pretty sure of that. And the digital financial inclusive is for every economic operators, especially those who are in the bottom of the ladder, and especially women. Thank you for that.
And thank you, sir. I would now like to welcome Ms. Maureen Mbaka, the Chief Administrative Secretary of ICT, to share her thoughts on shaping the future of a digital economy and the potential of digital payment systems. Ms. Mbaka was appointed Chief Administrator Secretary by His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2020. She is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and a certified public secretary of the country. Maureen was also previously engaged as a legal researcher for the International Development Law Organization, as well as the Center for International Sustainable Development. A very warm welcome to you, Ms. Mbaka. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Dr. Robert Ochola, CEO of AfricaNenda, AfricaNenda leadership and team, distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, greetings. I'm delighted to join you all today for the launch of AfricaNenda, an emerging and independent Africa-led coalition of dedicated digital payment experts. I believe I am on the right side of history this evening, bearing witness to this launch. Your mission and vision resonate with me as a Kenyan leader and with Kenya's policies that I will speak on this evening that look to ensure that Kenyans become digitally enabled and are able to access instant and inclusive payment systems. As stated, my name is Maureen Mbaka. I'm the CAS in the Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs, Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, the future is digital, and we need to ensure that we as a continent are prepared for that. In this growing digital world, we face a future of immense possibilities. New technologies and services emerge every day, with digital technologies increasingly becoming essential in our daily activities. Governments, businesses, and individuals thus must adapt to this new reality. It is on this background that Kenya has embarked on its digital transformation journey that informed the formulation of the country's digital economy blueprint, a roadmap for the digital transformation of the economy that seeks to see every citizen, enterprise, and organization with digital access and the capability to participate and thrive in the digital economy. This was done to ensure that the digital economy benefits become our reality, and we hope to walk this journey with the rest of Africa. Digitization is indeed the next frontier for placing citizens at the heart of any nation's development, and more importantly, raising their standards of living. The vision of the blueprint is having a digitally empowered citizenry living in a digitally enabled society. We aspire for a Kenya where every citizen, enterprise, and organization have digital access and the capability to participate and thrive in the digital economy. Financial inclusion is at the core of our mission. To reach these goals and follow our pathway towards a digital economy, we must build collaborative ecosystems that facilitate digital transactions on a national, regional, and global scale. This is the rationale that informed Kenya's digital economy blueprint. Allow me to take you back in time to the beginning of Kenya's digital path in 2007. This was a remarkable year as it became possible to use mobile phones to serve the widespread need of transferring money through M-Pesa, Kenya's leading mobile platform. This was a milestone in Kenya's digital transformation journey. A person working in Nairobi could now send money to their family in the countryside with just a couple of taps on their mobile phone, which could be cashed by a family member through a network of cash agents. This innovation offered a platform to overcome challenges related to distance, cost, and time that Kenyans had previously faced in accessing money transfer and other financial services. Back then, digital payments and other financial services were viewed as potential enablers for prosperity in the country. We still believe they are. These products have connected a population which was hitherto unbanked and unserved and continues to connect them. Secure and efficient payment systems are essential for the proper functioning of a financial system. They connect government, businesses, and consumers, support broad-based economic activity, opportunities, and growth, increase consumer confidence, and reduce transaction costs. They allow businesses to accelerate growth when unburdened of the need for paper and cash-based transactions that require more time and energy to complete. Most importantly, due to low costs and high mobile penetration, digital payments play an important role in creating universal access to financial services for many financially excluded adults, not only in Kenya, but across the continent. In 2013, more than 2/3 of Kenya's adult population was reported to have a mobile payment account. In 2018, the rate of adults receiving digital payments in Kenya was 79%, compared to 62% for higher middle income countries and 29% for lower middle income countries. Kenya has made great strides in mobile payments, but some challenges are recognized. One of these is interoperability. The digital economy relies on enhanced interconnectivity of networks and interoperability of digital platforms in all sectors of the economy and society to offer convergent services. We do need to work towards interoperable digital payments, as we are convinced that mobile payments and cashless solutions must be easy to use for everyone. Enhanced interoperability will reduce friction in e-commerce transactions, increase ease of use for consumers, and reduce costs for platform operators. Digital services have been entrenched in the daily lives of most Kenyans, but more needs to be done to fully benefit from the digital economy. So what are the key pillars for moving forward? Firstly, we should not forget to put people at the center of the financial system. For both public and private sector, the key question must be, what are the needs of the people and how will digitization work for them? Every citizen needs to benefit and find value in strategies towards a digital economy. In this regard, the digital economy strategy, which is currently in draft form, derived from Kenya's digital economy blueprint, seeks to change the narrative by remodeling the approach to digital inclusion. It thus seeks to transform marginalized groups into a digitally adaptive, skilled, and innovative workforce that will not only comprehend, adapt, and move with global trends, but chart their own digital pathways towards inclusive growth and development. Of course, no one should be left behind. As a government institution, this means that we are working towards personalized services designed around citizens' needs, focused on customer centrism, open public data sources, and moving away from outdated business models. This also means that we are moving away from paper-based transactional services towards online integrated digital offerings, encouraging interaction between the citizens and the state. Another key direction concerns the power of collaboration. From a government perspective, we recognize that we have a critical role to play in the creation, establishment, and promulgation of the digital economy, but we realize that we cannot build it alone. To reap the benefits that new digital technologies provide us, we must work together across countries, sectors, and organizations. It is for those reasons that it is so important that we are all here today, and why we are grateful that AfricaNenda has convened a variety of experts and professionals from within the finance ecosystem throughout Africa. Let us unite in our journey towards a digital economy that embraces financial inclusion through acceleration of inclusive payment systems on the continent. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Ms. Mbaka. Lovely words. They definitely have given a lot of us food for thought. And I like what you said in terms of us being on the right side of history. Ma'am, if I could just ask you one last question, firmly do take your seat. And it's just a follow-up about the digital revolution currently going on and the associated risks thereof. Would you say that we are on the right track when it comes to mitigating the risks associated with digital money, like the potential creation of new monopolies and the risk of consumer protection and financial stability?
Thank you so much for that question. Indeed, with these new technologies, with this new, venturing into these new areas, we have to ensure that our frameworks, at least our enabling frameworks as a government, we do ensure that we do keep up, we do review them so as to take into account all these risks that do come with this new technology. So with the benefits that do come with this new technologies, all the advantages that we can reap from it, we do recognize the risks that do come with them and actively respond by often reviewing our frameworks to ensure that they keep up and they do address these areas that do come up. Of course, we do have our consumer protection laws in Kenya. We do have, the competition laws in Kenya. We do have them in place. So we do look at them and review and make sure that even as we adapt all these digital benefits that are coming up, that they do also keep in touch with the risks that are abound. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mbaka. And thank you so far to the audience and the attendees for their engagement. I have been looking at the numbers in terms of who is logged on, and I can see that they are rising. And already we have had some engagement in the chat box. I would encourage you and invite you all to feel free to share any thoughts that you may have, or any questions that you might have also for the speakers. You can address that in the chat box. And I'm sure at some point in the session, we will be able to get to them, and we will get through as many as time does allow. On that note, let's move on. I am at this point quite excited to hear from our next speaker, and to hand you over to him, the Chief Executive Officer of AfricaNenda, Mr. Robert Ochola, who will introduce AfricaNenda to us in totality and tell us exactly what it hopes to achieve. Robert, good afternoon. Take it away.
Thank you very much. The chairperson of COMESA Business Council, Mr. Marday Venkatasamy, the vice chairman, and my good friend actually, Sachin, good guy, it's good to see you. The board member and indeed our chairman of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Mr. Muchai Kuniha, it's a pleasure to see you again. The director of the West African Monetary Institute, who I know is online, Sir Dr. Olowofeso, it's good to see you, and thank you for joining us. The Chief Executive of the Rwanda Information Society Authority, Mr. Innocent Muhizi, welcome to Nairobi. The Director General of Emerging Technologies and Innovation, Ms. Esther Kunda, from the Ministry of ICT in Kigali, again, welcome to Nairobi. Mr. Stefan Naletambi, Director, Financial Service Sector Development at African Development Bank. We welcome you. I know you're dialing in remotely. My dear friend, Anjana Wamola, Acting Head of the GSMA, Mr. Nick Hodge, welcome to Nairobi, sir, all the way from New York, representing the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. I know we also have a few other that I would call out. Dilly out, and David, I saw you tweet. Also would like to recognize your presence. Today, it gives me great pleasure to be here in front of all of you as we launch AfricaNenda. And as I thought about what I would present before getting into the nitty-gritties of the work we'll be doing, I thought it would be important for us to take a pause and actually think through the problem statement, as we call it. So as we reflect on these issues, it is clear to us today that 240 million African women are unbanked, and we know them. We know their names. They are our mothers, they are our sisters, they are our cousins, they are our aunties, and they're people that we know. So it's important that we take a step to just think through, and we know their names actually. In Kenya, where I come from, I'll just use one name, Chirono, or Auntie Chirono, and we know her. If I go to Southern Africa, Chipo, or Auntie Chipo, or Sister Chipo. If I go further west to West Africa, probably as far as Senegal, Dakar, and of course this name is common, but I'm just using it as an example, Mariama. And I took an example of Ghana, Akuba. And today, what exactly are these mothers, aunties, sisters of ours doing today, those who are financially excluded? They wake up in the morning, they either go to the cocoa farm, they go to a tea farm, they go to a flower farm, or they go to the market. And when they engage using cash. That means they don't have any digital presence. They are not able to access any financial credit or solution. And they continue to exist regardless of the changes and movements that we've seen over the last decade across the continent. Great successes that we've seen in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Ghana, with the advent of mobile solutions. So this is indeed the problem statement. And a lot of work has been done in this arena, and therefore it is with great pleasure today that AfricaNenda, with all its humility, comes in to add, hopefully, impetus and focus to this very important mission. As you heard from the chairman and the president of the COMESA Business Council, that AfricaNenda is indeed an independent African organization who is here to accelerate the growth of instant and inclusive payment systems. I was looking at some data that says that this year alone, you will have 7 trillion transactions through instant and inclusive payment systems on the continent, globally. And that growth is set to sort of increase 40% over the next 4 to 5 years to move to about $28 trillion. And it's, for me, very important that Africa is a significant part of that $28 trillion. And I think all the pieces are in place. So at AfricaNenda, what are we looking to do? Because I think there has been a lot of work done. And our mission really is to provide universal access and proliferation of instant and inclusive payment systems on the continent. I mentioned that number, 240 million. That, of course, is because 60% of the 400 million are women. But the number that we're talking about is 400 million. And the issues today continue to be around structural and technical barriers. And as we roll out and need to grow instant and inclusive payment systems on the continent, we need to address these challenges. And I'd bucket them into 5 sort of global or broad areas. Today we do have, and I think Maureen Mbaka, who was a bit of a faux pas I forgot to mention because she walked out, mentioned today around the lack of interoperability. So this is one of the key challenges that we see today on the continent. There's also, in some cases, insufficient in-house technical capacity around the solution providers, regulators across the continent who are being charged with driving instant and inclusive payment systems on the continent. We've also seen instances of inadequate pre-project design and planning when we're rolling out these systems. And therefore, we believe we have the requisite skills and team to support and drive that. And I think as you see us launching, signing some of the MOUs, you'll see some of the work we've already begun to do in this arena. In some cases, there's also high levels of bureaucracy within decision-making bodies, and we believe that we need to support and drive down and bring down some of those barriers. And finally, in areas where we need to see collaboration, we still see elements of competition and sort of areas where they still have different matrices and people don't want to really bring down the borders and actually collaborate. So this is a key area of concern, and one that we believe as AfricaNenda, we can, as a neutral body, come in, intervene, and work to bring down some of those barriers. So AfricaNenda's mission then can be summarized into 2 broad areas. The first area is around providing pre-project planning support, developing business models, scheme designs. That's actually the technical aspects of a payment system, including governance structure, business modeling. So that's a critical aspect of what we should be doing. The area of policy and advocacy is also a critical one, and we shall be intervening and supporting stakeholders within the ecosystem to bring down some of the policy challenges. The policy environment is so important as one sets out the technical requirements. We shall also be involved in market readiness and looking at existing systems and looking at the gaps and saying, in order to build a future-proof solution, this is the roadmap that would not need to be developed. And finally, co-creating and working with different stakeholders who deliver some of these payment systems around project definition and visioning as we execute these solutions, not just within country, all at a regional level, but also at a continental level. The second part of our work which goes hand in hand with the first part, is really around enhancing capacity of payment experts and other stakeholders within the ecosystem. We do this by providing technical expertise and building institutional capacity. So in some cases, we embed some of our staff within our partners so that we can support them on their journey. We will also work on delivering best practice, and there's a lot of great examples across our continent. We believe sometimes you do not need to reinvent the wheel, and rather take what works and look at modifying it for your own market. So there we'll be involved in knowledge sharing, convening thought leaders across the continent to drive this critical agenda. We also believe that in order to build up technology and capacity, we shall also be building tools, which should be pretty standard, so that 60–70% of an instant payment system, the information will be available on our website within AfricaNenda, and one can then use that and modify for your own market cases. And then finally, with the need to drive literacy, financial literacy and training, we'll be getting involved in developing digital payments training for stakeholders as well as users in terms of creating demand within the ecosystem. If you look at our stakeholder universe, as an African organization, we will be doing this at a 3-tier level. The first tier will be at a continental level, working with regional partners, continental partners who execute this within the continent, but also within the regional play. The RECs continue to be very important in driving our continent's agenda, including driving the recently trading started under the AfCFTA. So we shall get involved with the RECs and supporting them on their execution of regional payment systems, and also then at country level. And at country level, we'll be working with government agencies. We shall be working with central banks. We shall be working with payment associations. We shall be working with banks, mobile network operators, and indeed the fintech community across the continent to ignite that and really drive this shift that we need to see. At this juncture, allow me just to spend a few minutes on introducing the team that continues to grow, and really humbled to be sort of flanked, as it were, by such great and established, experienced African practitioners. Allow me to just quickly introduce them. We have Mr. Wale Goodluck, who is our Deputy CEO. We also have Madame Sabine Mensah, who is also a Deputy CEO. Both these would be helping us drive at the leadership team, drive this very critical agenda. They bring a strong wealth of experience, not just at a continental level, but also at a global level from some of the experiences they have. And then the next slide, this is still a young and small team. I call them the A-team. And of course, I'd like to introduce a few of them who are here today. And this team continues to grow. And behind them, there's a group of others that support them. But Mr. Michael Mbudia, who sits at the moment as our East African Regional Director, but plays across, supporting us from a technical perspective across the continent. We'll be supporting him and hopefully bringing on a few more regional directors to support him. Madame Jacqueline Juma as well, who's a technical expert. Vanessa Mutomi, who's came in recently, technical payment specialist. And Tony Okech, who's right now our operations manager. So this is the team that currently is at play, and we continue to enforce and support them in driving a very important agenda. As I conclude, I thought it would be reminiscent of me not to paint a vision of what we should be looking to achieve collectively when we look up at 2030. And I think Fifi mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. So when we look ahead 8 years from now, what do we hope to see? Well, we hope to see the Chipos, the Chironos, the Akubas of this world, of the continent, having equitable access to financial products. We hope that at that point, they would have built up a credit history. We hope at that point, they will also be able to get some form of credit insurance for themselves and for their families. As you know, today, 70% of consumer spend on our continent, the decisions are made by our mothers, sisters, etc. So it's very important that we empower them and build bespoke solutions that will meet their needs. And just as we close, I'd like to just reflect on a statement by Chinua Achebe. He says, every generation must recognize and embrace the tasks it is particularly designed by history and providence to perform. And I just added, for the betterment of posterity. Thank you for your attention.
And thank you to you, Robert. I think that what you would find is that there would be a virtual applause, as it were, to your presentation. I knew the numbers were bad, but I didn't realize just how bad. 400 million people being excluded from the formal financial ecosystem here. It's a big task that yourselves and your team at AfricaNenda have set yourselves on to try and include these people, particularly the 60% of women that you did highlight, the women that you did rightly say we know and whose names we know. And I think it just speaks to what Mrs. Mbaka said, in the sense that it does have to be a collaborative spirit. It is not something that can be achieved unilaterally or even by a few parties. All stakeholders need to be involved. It actually echoes some of the messages that we are getting on the chat. Quite a lot of excitement and enthusiasm from some of the attendees who have shared and expressed their enthusiasm to also be on board the journey with you as we march towards 2030 and an ecosystem where hopefully a lot more people have the financial integrity that we heard of. At this juncture, I would now like to extend an invitation to one of the team members there at AfricaNenda, whose face we did see on the infographic, Mr. Good luck. He is the Deputy CEO of AfricaNenda. And so I'd like to, at this point, hand over to you to invite the various partners and stakeholders who have journeyed with you thus far in joining AfricaNenda. And at this juncture, I'd like to hand over to you, sir, for the official signing of the MOU.
Thank you very much, Fifi. Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Akinwale Goodluck. I'm Deputy CEO at AfricaNenda. I would like to say that I will stand on the protocols that Robert has established, but permit me to also acknowledge the presence of a member of our advisory board, Ms. Manel Abdulmonem. Thank you. She's come from Cairo to join us this evening. As Dr. Ochola had earlier mentioned, we at AfricaNenda believe that instant and inclusive payment systems are critical tools for extending financial access for all. We also acknowledge the fact that initiating, developing, and accelerating inclusive payments is a complex matter, requiring strong cross-sectoral collaboration and partnerships. As a result, the AfricaNenda team has already started the work of establishing stronger engagement and collaboration with key organizations and institutions that have distinct expertise within the digital payment ecosystem, as well as insights and influence in the region. Through these collaborations, we aim to share insights and best practice, push thought leadership, and enhance capabilities to scale up instant and inclusive payment systems. Together with our partners, we also look forward to jointly identifying and working on early stage programs and projects that can expand the broader pipeline of fundable, instant, and inclusive payment systems. To mark the start of a great and exciting journey for AfricaNenda, I am pleased to invite you to witness the signing ceremony of the Memorandum of Understanding between AfricaNenda and its two newest partners, the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa Business Council, COMESA Business Council, and the Rwanda Information Society Authority, RISA. May I please invite Dr. Robert Ochola, and Ms. Sabine Mensah to the stage to join me at this exciting moment for AfricaNenda. Dr. Ochola had also mentioned in terms of what the numbers are and our aim to support 150 million Africans to access digital payments. AfricaNenda is proud to announce our partnership with COMESA Business Council. Our mutual objective is to successfully deploy a regional payment platform for micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises, which will promote financial inclusion for all MSMEs in all 19 COMESA countries. May I please invite Mr. Sachin Gutka from COMESA Business Council to come to the stage. And I'd also like to invite Mr. Mukai Kunyiya to please join him. So, Mr. Gutka. Yes. Oh, that's it. Thank you. All right. Thanks. So just leave the two. Okay. Can I invite Dr. Ochola? Sign the two. Thank you very much. Please, can I invite Mr. Gutka to share some comments with us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. The AfricaNenda Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Robert Ochola, Ms. Maureen Mbaka, who is the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of ICT, the COMESA Business Council Board Chairperson, Mr. Marday Venkatasamy, COMESA Business Council Board Directors present herein, the Chairman, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Mushai Kunyiha, the Chief Executive Officer, COMESA Business Council, Sandra Uwera, the AfricaNenda Deputy Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Akinwale Goodluck, the AfricaNenda Deputy CEO, Deputy Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Sabine Mensah, the team from AfricaNenda, including the advisory from Egypt, who's just flown in. Thank you so much. And also from New York, from the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisory, and from our colleagues in Rwanda. Thank you so much for coming in to Nairobi, and you're welcome in Nairobi. Captains of industry, commercial banks, mobile network operators, manufacturers, MSMEs, fintechs, and non-bank operators, and members of the press, all protocols observed. Before I delve into the formal speech, I think I'd like to share what Robert and I, when we first met a few years ago in Ethiopia. I was part of a team from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, which led a delegation of business people into Ethiopia. Robert was there, Mushai was also there, and there was a team of nearly 40 of us who went to Ethiopia several years ago. And at that time, kind of Safaricom, Robert was at Safaricom as the head of strategy. He joined us on that trip. And the fruits, I think, of a seed that was sown then during his visit have become quite apparent. It's germinated into a deal whereby Safaricom actually now has a mobile, or is going to establish a mobile presence in Ethiopia. So I think, Robert, that was a fruitful trip and a good visit. I remember us going to the president's office on the hill, Haile Mariam Desalegn, and we were all made very welcome by him and his team. So those memories are fresh, Robert, and it was a pleasure to meet you then, and it's a pleasure to continue the association. So allow me to begin by extending our profound gratitude as COMESA Business Council, CBC, for the invitation to be part of this official launch of AfricaNenda. It is pleasing to note that AfricaNenda has established strong engagement and collaboration with organizations such as CBC that have expertise in digital payment systems and influence in the region to share insights and best practices and invest in building the long-term capacity of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises to scale up instant payment systems. Before I delve into the intricacies of this meeting, may I draw your attention to the COMESA Business Council in terms of who we are and what we do. COMESA Business Council is a recognized business member organization established as a private sector institution of COMESA. We represent the interests of business sectors at a regional level. The services provided go beyond advocacy to actively promote business participation in regional integration, investment, and global trade. This is done by facilitating the growth of strong business synergies, the development of business opportunities, business alliances, legislative and strategic advocacy. We provide custom-tailored services that are driven by both industry and enterprise interests. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm aware that AfricaNenda provide critical pre-project planning support to expand the broader pipeline of fundable, instant, and inclusive payment system projects. Amongst others, the role of AfricaNenda include the following: project definition and vision. So supporting project owners to define project objectives and design principles, as well as identify, convene, and align key payment stakeholders. The second part is the scheme design and structuring, whereby it will help in supporting project owners in developing project work plans and budgets, and identify project facilitators, technical assistants, and implementation partners. The third flank on this is readiness assessments, working with project owners to determine the economic feasibility of a potential deployment. Assess if the deployment is instant and inclusive, and identify areas in project design where AfricaNenda can support. And the last plank is on advocacy and policy support in terms of generating interest in instant and inclusive payment systems by disseminating information, meeting with potential project owners, and convening key private sector stakeholders. May I therefore state that as COMESA Business Council, we share your objective on the need for instant and inclusive payment systems. As CBC, we're implementing a digital foundation financial inclusion program that supports the design, development, and deployment of an integrated regional digital financial services infrastructure that is low cost, interoperable, and fraud resistant, that serves micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. The program has a keen focus on women and youth and the customers they transact with at the bottom of the financial pyramid. This would be first developed from a regulatory focus approach to the business model, and finally, the actual operational and technical establishment. The expected result of the program is to streamline cash-based MSMEs into digital markets that enjoy affordable, interoperable, transparent, and real-time financial transactions. The expected impact is increased volumes of cross-border transactions, financial inclusion, increased visibility of African products within regional markets, and the participation of MSMEs in regional trade. This will directly respond to the intra-trade deficit in the region. In the first phase of the project, a business case report was produced which guided the development of model policy for regional digital retail payment platform for MSMEs in the COMESA region, and guidelines on the operational of digital retail payment platform for MSMEs. The business case and model policy framework, including guidelines, are expected to guide the process of development of business model on operation and implementation of regional digital retail payment platform for MSMEs. We therefore look forward to the great collaboration with AfricaNenda on business modeling and MSME technical capacity building program in the COMESA region. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, digital financial services spans the full spectrum of financial services, from payments and current accounts to savings, loans, investments, and insurance. It is therefore important to note that Africa is a global leader in mobile money, which has become an important component of Africa's financial services landscape. It is further interesting to learn that 20% of Africa's adult population has access to a mobile money account compared to the world average of 4.4%. Demand for services is expected to witness a large uptake across the continent, with financial transactions made through the internet and mobile phone expected to grow by at least 500%, led by mobile money. On the other hand, based on the business case study, which we did in 2019 and early 2020, you may wish to know that barriers to mobile money use also stem from low levels of consumer capabilities. Many Africans have low digital literacy due to lack of access to gadgets such as computers, cell phones, and digital literacy is even lower for vulnerable groups. The elderly are more likely than youth to be digitally illiterate, and both women and those with lower levels of education are also less digitally literate than those with better education. Cell phone ownership and use and exposure to digitization. I'm therefore very happy to note that CBC and AfricaNenda have already embarked on the joint MSMEs technical capacity building program to promote access to digital financial services in the COMESA region. Ladies and gentlemen, the MSME segment of the economy is largely informal, transaction using inefficient channels and risky cash. However, behavioral factors play a huge role in the stickiness of using cash instead of digital modes for financial transactions. The key element is a lack of trust in digital financial services, which is often common with new consumers, especially when the interface is cumbersome. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, as COMESA Business Council, we look forward to fruitful engagements with AfricaNenda that will undoubtedly build synergies for best outcomes in the seamless and successful implementation of a regional digital retail payments platform that is responsive to the market's transactional needs for the bottom of the financial pyramid in the entire COMESA region and Africa at large. I thank you all for your attention, and I wish you all successful engagements and deliberations during and beyond this launch of AfricaNenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Goodker, for your kind and insightful words. It gives me a lot of pleasure now to please invite Mr. Innocent Bagamba Muhizi of RISA and Ms. Esther Kunda of the Ministry of ICT Rwanda onto the stage for the second signing of our MOU with RISA. AfricaNenda is proud to announce our partnership with RISA. Over the last couple of months, we have had very interesting engagements on how to collaborate on the development of Rwanda's digitization programs. It has been very inspiring to learn about all the projects and programs that RISA is supporting and championing. We will all shortly get a chance to learn more about these programs from Mr. Muhizi. So it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Muhizi, please answer. Dr. Ochola, please. Sorry, I left the microphone off. So I'd like to say thank you again to Ms. Esther Kunda of the Ministry of ICT Rwanda. And it's my pleasure again to invite Mr. Innocent Muhizi to come and share with us some of his thoughts on what he's doing at RISA and AfricaNenda. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. I'm known for, disrupting and breaking a lot of things. And I will start by breaking protocol here and say all protocols observed. It is an honor for me to be here this afternoon to witness this event. But nonetheless, I want to thank Dr. Robert Ochola for the invitation. And with that, I want to extend that also because this thought started a good number of years back when I met, excuse me, when I met Michael Mbuthia, and there were a lot of things going on and I could not figure out what it was. I met Michael, and then later on I had an interesting conversation with a colleague in Kigali. And then after that, I jumped onto a call with Nick and other colleagues, some were from Seattle, others were either in New York. And at that time, I didn't understand what was going on. But fast forward, here we are. And I'm very honored and very grateful for this event. Exactly 20 years last year, the government of Rwanda embarked on a journey to transform the economy. And under the leadership of the President Kagame, Vision 2020 was born. And alongside Vision 2020, there was another plan of 20 years that was earmarked to transform the digital economy, so to speak. So it was broken down into 4 5-year pieces, and we used to call them NICI, National Information Communication Infrastructure. So we had NICI 1, which was focusing on the regulatory environment, getting up the institutions. Then we had NICI 2, which was focusing on laying the infrastructure, the fiber optic cables, and all the other required infrastructure. NICI 3 was starting to launch into services, automation, and what have you. What would have been NICI 4 transformed into what we call Smart Rwanda Master Plan, which started now to look at how do we get these automation services to really respond to what the citizens are looking for. Now we are in the phase of Smart Rwanda Master Plan version 2, which we're working on. But alongside this journey, now we have Vision 2050 with a stopgap 2035. I think Robert Ochola mentioned something to the effect that 8 years from today, where would we want to see our citizens? Where would we want to see this industry? I'll take it a little further and say, in 2050, what would we want to see? What do we envisage as the Africa we want? Or how do we envisage the digital ecosystem, not only in payments? Let me just give you a very simple example. I read an article where it said that 60% of arable land in the whole world is actually in Africa. 60% of arable land that you can cultivate and get goods. But 80% of people who go hungry are actually in Africa. And that is very funny, if not sad. But how do we really address those inequalities? How do we address those challenges? We believe digital economy is going to give us the tools and means to be able to address such challenges. And that is why at RISA, and I thank my colleague Esther for the great work she's doing at the ministry under the leadership of Minister Paula, who, by the way, Robert and his team were able to meet a couple of weeks back and had very engaging discussions together with other leaders in the industry. RISA's responsibility is to get the vision and the policies the ministry is working on or puts together and get them down to the real people and enable to automate digitized services in the economy. And among all these services, interoperability is at the heart of whatever we do, not only in payments. Right now, we're rolling out what is called a government enterprise service bus, which is a platform that is going to interlink all the government systems. Because if you take a child who is born today, this child is born in a hospital. The child is going to go to school tomorrow. The child is going to finish and get a job. The child is going to get married. The child is going to own a property. Along all these lines, there are different registries that are looking at this particular individual. Today, a lot of them are disintegrated. So our role is to make sure they are all interlinked because you're looking at this particular citizen. And with that, payment is also part of the work that we do, where we work with the central bank, the payment industry, and other participants in the ecosystem. And at this moment, we're very, very honored to be partnering with AfricaNenda, whose job is going to come and join force with ours to really push forward the payment ecosystem. And with this, I would like to end with a quote, just following the example that was set by Dr. Ochola, and from the same poet, the African son, Chinua Achebe, where he said, when the center does not hold, things fall apart. And we believe the interoperability framework that we're talking about is the glue that is going to piece everything together, both from the payments ecosystem into other digital services. Truth be told, whatever you do, if there's no payment attached to it, you won't get motivation. I mean, if I just take an example of our trip from Kigali this morning up until here, there are all sorts of payments interlinked into every single step that we took. So payment is a very fundamental element to every African citizen and beyond. So if that center is not strong, is not robust, we'll not be able to achieve what we intend to achieve. And we're very grateful, AfricaNenda's leadership, Nick, for your leadership as well. I want to thank you and all the colleagues. We look forward to a very, very interesting times ahead of us, because we have no chance to get it wrong. And maybe I'll end here by saying that if we get it wrong now, the 200 million or 400 million people that Dr. Robert mentioned are at stake. Their lives are at stake. And we have no chance to get it wrong. We have all the tools and all the requirements to really do a good job and deliver on what we intend to do, or what we are required to do. And with the support that we are getting, both within RISA, or in Rwanda, or even at the region like COMESA and other regional organizations, we have all we need. We have the intellect, we have the tools, we have the wisdom and the resources. Therefore, let the work begin, and we look forward to a very, very engaging participation as we embark on this digital journey. I thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Muhizi, for sharing with us your vision to paving the inclusive payments pathway. And I agree with you that we do have everything that we need. We have the tools, and we even have the benefits of a technology to leapfrog. And I also agree with you when you say that we don't have the chance to get it wrong. And I believe that we won't, or at least I hope. But ladies and gentlemen, we have heard and various partnerships can look like. And therefore, at this juncture, I think it would be the perfect point to deep dive into a discussion of how we can collectively work together to build a Pan-African capacity, and a movement towards inclusive payments. And for that discussion, we will be led by Mrs. Sabine Mensah, who is the Deputy CEO of AfricaNenda, and she will take the stage and also invite our three key experts in the space of financial inclusion. You saw her a little earlier looking absolutely fabulous, representing the attire and the tradition of Africa in her garments. And Ms. Sabine, I'd like to invite you back once again with your fellow panelists to lead our discussion.
Thank you very much, Fifi Peters. Thank you very much to all of the participants here. Thank you very much to our partners that have been here. It really is a pleasure and an honor for me to stand here today and facilitate this discussion. And also, before I start this session, I encourage all of the participants digitally to really share your thoughts, your questions in the Q&A, so we can integrate, these questions in when it's at the end of the panel, when we can ask questions to our panelists and have their contribution. So thank you very much to all of you for being here. And before we start this discussion, it's interesting to reflect in the last 30 years how things have changed in the digital space. I remember in 1990, I was sending letters, and then the post office will take a couple of weeks for that information to get to my family. Today, I can see them anytime, regardless of the distance, regardless of time, or even better, I can send money. I can contribute to causes. I can move money in the space of an instant through something as simple as a mobile phone. It's amazing how technology has enabled, these changes in the way we use money, in the way we are able to resolve economic equation by being able to transfer money, by being able to receive payments. Yesterday, I was on a panel with the COMESA Business Council and great women leaders, and the question was about trade and how do we facilitate trade, and how can digital financial inclusion be an accelerator of the SMEs being able to transact, leveraging telephones, access to information, access to market. So there's no doubt that digital transformation is happening in our ecosystem, but there's also no doubt in my mind that we're not there yet, and there's a lot more work to be done. And I'm sure all of you here can relate to that. So the question about what is it that we can do and how we can make this change is really at the helm of our conversation today. And I'm really happy to see that I'm not alone in the conversation, and we are going to be able to have this conversation with partners that have agreed to join me today on this panel with you. So hopefully our panelists are on the line. I would like to, first of all, start with Dr. Olowofeso, DG of the West African Monetary Institute. It's a pleasure to have you here on this panel. Welcome to the discussion.
Thank you very much.
All right. I would also like to welcome Angela Wamola, who is the Acting Head Sub-Saharan Africa for GSMA. It's a pleasure to have you here. And as you know, all conversation about digital payment, digital services, they all center around infrastructure. So I'm really happy that you are here and be able to talk to us about the question of infrastructure. And last but not least, we welcome Stefan Nalitombi, who is the Director of the Financial Sector Development at the African Development Bank. Thank you very much, Stefan, to be here with us. It's
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. And while we're having this conversation, we will also be able to include questions from the floor as we move forward into discussion. We will have two rounds of discussion. One of them is for us at AfricaNenda to start with evidence, to start with what we know in the market. What is going on? What are those challenges that we see in promoting and scaling instant and inclusive payment system? And then we'll move on from discussion about challenges to also look at what we can do collectively in terms of capacity building. If you allow me to start with you, DG, we hear the PAPs. Can you maybe tell us what is PAP? I know the West African Monetary Institute has partnered with the AfricaNenda Bank in launching the PAPs in July 2019. So help us understand the problem that we're going to solve with PAPs, and what are the challenges that you've seen in the implementation of this pilot in the WANS region? To you, DG.
Thank you very much. As you rightly mentioned, PAP is a novel and cutting-edge initiative. And I must say that with AfricaNenda Bank through Pan-African Payment System, PAPS, that helps to guarantee all transactions. When you look at the main settlement agent is the AfricaNenda Bank, why the central banks of the WAMs will help in the co-settlement agent. And this is very key because of the symbiotic relationship, the collaboration, the trust is there. So the issue of transactions, perhaps will guarantee that. And I must say that when it comes to issue of cross-border in terms of local currency settlement, this is very key to cross-border trading, and Pan-African payment system is going to help in this area. If you look at the topology of the PAPs, really, the regional settlement will be done with the not necessarily the local currency as we have it now, the national settlement, not necessarily, but when with the PAPs arrangement, all the transaction, the local currencies will be done in that platform. And I must say that there are some of the challenges to be solved. One is it will reduce the cost of cross-border payment across Africa, which is very key. Another issue is that it will also reduce durations and time variability of cross-border payment across Africa. And one other point too is that it will decrease liquidity requirements of commercial banks for corresponding banking relationship. And one other point again is it will equally decrease liquidity requirement of central bank for settlement and strengthen central bank cross-border payment settlement over sites through effective reporting and sound risk management, which is very key. I must say that the issue of trade and unrecorded trade is very key, because if you look at the statistics generally, it's not being captured. And with this platform now, it will help us to capture the statistics. And most of these stakeholders, the central bank particularly, need these statistics in their current, in their balance of payment transaction to be able to take a policy decision. So with these PAPs, it will facilitate intra-Africa trade and formalize some of the unrecorded trade due to prevalence of informal cross-border trade in Africa. And one other challenge is that the high cost of lengthy corresponding bank. This is it's a big challenge in Africa. So with PAPs, it will provide alternative to current high costs of lengthy corresponding banking relationship to facilitate trade and other economic activity among African countries. The issue, this one will reduce the cost, the risk control, it will be reduced, and interoperability payment and clearing settlement is very key. The other big challenge is that the high demand and cost of foreign currency, the dollar, the euro, the pounds, which perhaps this will reduce the reliance on the cost of foreign currency for intra-African trade. Then in terms of clearing and settlement, this is another big challenge too. With PAPs, it will also provide e-payment, clearing and settlement mechanism to support international trade of African states. I must also mention here that PAPs is expected to facilitate trade within the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and it will enable central bank process payment and settlement for internal regional trade in Africa in local currency. The issue of local currency is very key. You are in Ghana, you go to maybe Nigeria, you are spending Naira, then you do your transaction in that local currency. So the pressure on the dollar, euro, pounds will drastically be reduced. And on completion of these PAPs, I must emphasize that it will save Africa about 5 billion in transfer costs, bring back over 40 billion diverted from this continent yearly due to currency difference, because this is very key. We can't play with that. I need to also mention that the current challenges with the use of a corresponding bank, this is another big issue. With PAPs, I must say that no direct relationship with downstream banks now, as we have them now. If a problem occurs, if you send money from Nigeria, from Ghana now to Nairobi, Kenya, the money will still have to pass through other corresponding bank. It doesn't go straight, but with PAPs arrangement, that problem will be solved. And for what I mean here is that a payment is not received. If a payment is not received, the sender and the bank may not be able to trace the transaction quickly and or reliably. So there are a lot of bottleneck there. And another issue that is related to the correspondent bank is in terms of the cost. With multiple banks involved in the chain, there are a lot of chain. You send money from here, maybe the money will have to go to UK, you go to London first, from London you go to US before you get to Nairobi. So there are a lot of banks involved in the chain, and you have to pay a little fees on this. I must also say that one other challenge related to the corresponding bank is limited data transportation capability. The payment initiator may wish to send information with a transaction, and because of the numbers of banks involved, you don't get the information because there are a lot of chain in that network. So it's not direct. And another issue associated with the correspondent bank is the barriers to change with PAPs. Oh, the national central banks are there, the regional central bank, and the PAPs arrangement is there. So in terms of infrastructural challenges too, PAP has also helped in this area of infrastructural challenges. So I think, how many minutes do I have left?
I think you're about finished your minutes, DG.
Okay.
I am here with you,
Okay.
and I hear you in terms of the challenges that you've shared with us.
Okay. Now.
And absolutely, we'll come back to you with an additional question. Thank you very much.
Thank
So
you.
perhaps will facilitate interoperability, will lower costs into the banking system, which obviously will hope will trickle down to the consumer and facilitate cross-border trade. Thank you very much. And it's interesting that you're ending on the infrastructures question, because I want to go now to Angela and see if any contribution that you can make. Because again, when we're talking about payment and we're talking about interoperability and we're talking about being able to move money for cross-border trade, oftentimes the question or the foundational barrier is infrastructure, and whether this infrastructure is on connectivity, it is on device. So I would really like to hear from you and from your perspective with the GSMA, how these barriers are currently being addressed in that sector and the work that you are doing. To you, Angela. You are on mute, Angela.
Yes, thank you. So just diving straight into that question. So, being a predominantly mobile-only, mobile-first continent, our continent relies largely on mobile technologies as the means for our society to not only participate fully, but to also grasp opportunities to leapfrog, particularly during this fourth industrial revolution, wherein digital payments are paramount for sustaining and accelerating our digital economy in Africa. Now, having said that, last year, from the beginning of the pandemic till now, digital platforms in the financial services and healthcare sectors recorded strong investor confidence and consumer interest during the pandemic. There are over 1,200 digital platforms in Africa today. 5 countries, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, and Ghana, account for 80% of these. So what exactly are the barriers for widespread adoption and the acceleration of a digital economy in the region, for which digital payments are crucial for scale and for growth, right? So let us look at where we are today on the matter of infrastructure, the supply side. In our latest edition of the 2021, the Sub-Saharan Mobile Economy Report, which we published last week, and you can download it if you'd like, in the forecast to 2025, 4G infrastructure adoption in Sub-Saharan Africa will double to 28%, compared to a global average of 57%. And it is set to overtake 3G as the most dominant technology in 2023, so just 2 years from now. So the private sector will continue to evolve and build infrastructure, the digital highways. Clearly, infrastructure in the form of accessibility to a mobile broadband signal is not the issue for 81% of the population in sub-Saharan Africa. But it would be interesting to map out how mobile infrastructure overlays on other essential infrastructure like the electricity grid, road networks, and schools. So this here is an opportunity as well for partnerships and collaboration to kind of delve deeper into where the limitations on infrastructure lie. So if we are aligned that mobile internet services are essential for accelerating the digital economy in Africa, then the affordability of services offered by the mobile infrastructure is one of the key barriers, widely documented, and therein lies a myriad of connected contributors centered around the demand side for mobile internet services. Digital literacy, as we've heard, relevant and local content that people can relate to, and the affordability of services or of devices as well, which we've also heard. So, as all these result in very few mobile internet adopters in Africa, 303 million people to be precise. In numbers, 53% of our population today, 520 million people, live near a mobile broadband signal, but do not use mobile internet services for these known barriers. We heard earlier from Robert, he said that 400 million African people are excluded from access to financial services. How many of these 400 million people are part of the 520 million people who experience these barriers, discouraging them from using mobile internet and therefore towards accessing financial services? Additionally, the pace of innovation is not on our side. This poses new challenges to existing policies and regulatory frameworks. So I think, to summarize, it is vital that all stakeholders in the digital ecosystem become aware of the need to collaborate in developing policies that support the rise of digital platforms, enabling the private sector to continue to propose innovative solutions. Because we, in the mobile industry, what we are doing, we continue to build and evolve networks, we continue to engage policymakers, regulators, device and equipment manufacturers, everyone. We continue to educate, to create awareness on digital literacy. This requires all of us to understand which levers we have the power, we have the authority to deploy, to move the needle in the right direction and speedily.
Thank you very much, Angela. And I really appreciate that you say, yes, we have issues. Yes, infrastructure is key, but how many people are close to that infrastructure and not able to turn that infrastructure into potential usage, into tools that can help, whether it is in trade, whether it is in the financial, services that they can access. And like you said, it takes a whole lot of us to get there. So Stefan, I would like to ask you, because all of this talk about, infrastructure brings also the investment piece of it, because it needs to be financed. And you, as the African Development Bank, has contributed to a lot of these projects on building payment systems. So can you please share with us what you see as some of the bottleneck in these inclusive payment system projects that you've been invested in?
Thank you very much. Before I respond, first of all, let me thank you for having invited me to participate in this discussion. And so that you know, as you mentioned, I do look after the Financial Sector Development Department, and part of our mandate is to work on financial inclusion. And one of our goals is to actually achieve near universal access to finance by 2030. So we've got a tall order there. And obviously financial inclusion is going to be a driver of that. And digital financial inclusion is, of course, the easiest way for us to get there. So building inclusive payment systems is a key part of what we're looking to achieve in this 2030 goal. But given the sheer size of the challenge, no one institution can do it alone. And of course, this is why we're here today. And this is why AfricaNenda has been created, in fact. It's going to help us in a lot of ways. Now to your question on the main capacity bottlenecks that we've experienced. I'll, of course, stay very politically correct, if you don't mind. So the very nature of instant and inclusive payment systems are complex and involve several key stakeholders. the financial sector and beyond. Financial institutions, central banks, telcos, their own regulators, policymakers, consumer associations, just to name a few. So we often find that these stakeholders are at very different levels of capacity and understanding of the issues. So first bottleneck that we've encountered is to get them as much as possible on the same page in terms of technical knowledge, understanding of, and support for building the systems, as well as the legal and regulatory frameworks that go alongside it, which are required and that will allow us to make the impact that each stakeholder wants to make in the system. The second one is linked to ensuring that all stakeholders are ready and able to play their full role when we press the button. For example, in terms of regulation that may be required and the rollout of various support systems that are linked and crucial ingredients for the truly inclusive payment systems. I'll give you an example. You may have a strong technical solution. The lack of a robust national ID system means that your technical solution may not be as inclusive as you had envisaged. And it means obviously another discussion with a different ministry and further conversations. Finally, there is a significant gap in technical capacity. And this is, as you all know, you know better than I do. I'm not a specialist, but you are. This is a highly specialized field, and there are very few technical experts. So finding the right people who can give independent technical advice and support stakeholders to make the right choices for them can be expensive and time-consuming. And one mustn't forget that this is very much a PPP approach. This is public and private sector people working together in a common goal. And the governments also have to be conscious of the private sector's pre-investments that have sometimes taken place. So we have to find this equilibrium, because as was mentioned just by my predecessor, there's over 1,200 platforms already in existence on the continent. And one then has to see to what extent one can interlink these different platforms, which then becomes a very important enjeu. Sorry, I'm using a French word. I can't remember it in English. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stefan. I mean, thank you for pinpointing the capacity issue, because that's the next discussion item for us. And let's dive into it and see how together we can collaborate and provide capacity building tools and resources to that ecosystem to accelerate the growth of instant and inclusive payment systems. DJ, if you allow me, I would like to come back to you, please. So what do you think are some of those resources and tools that are necessary to support complex projects such as PAPs that you've been invested in, and what is it that we can do from a capacity building perspective? To you, DJ. You are on mute. If you can give us your recommendation in 1 minute, that would be awesome.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. The issue of skill, capacity building is very key, because in this area, people, particularly biometric-enabled technologies, people are not knowledgeable in that area, and there is need to really develop, strengthen the issue, collaboration between all stakeholders in this field. And it will help the fiscal authority, because the government needs, in terms of their revenues and expenditure, they need digitalization. The issue of payment systems there needs to be well strengthened. And recently, we are all aware of the issue of these COVID challenges. So many countries use this, what we call the social protection payment through payment service provider. It's not all the people that are, it's only the provider that are disbursing this fund to some of these stakeholders. And if you look at the issue of POS, point of sales, it's not, people are not really knowledgeable when we come, the use of credit card, the use of debit card, the use of radio frequency identifications as devices for payment. So this area needs to be well developed. And I must also say that mobile money, like the issue of PayPal, the issue of Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, Alipay to customers for customer transactions, These are new areas that people need to be well developed in that area. Then I'm happy that you mentioned the issue of contactless payment, which is the mobile application, online browser, e-wallet. These are areas that we need skill. And in terms of resources, we need both the human and the material resources. These are very key in the payment system ecosystem. And access to finance capital, I must say, is key. Then the national switch. Most of the, like in WAPS now, West African Monetary Zone, the government, that's the central banker, as well as all the stakeholders are collaborating, because it is a lot of fun to have a national switch. The issue of technology too is another resources that we need to put a lot of money there. Concerning tools, IT, both the software and the hardware, these are key. And we must also put at the back of our mind that security is of paramount, because if you have all these IT facilities and there's no robust security architecture in place, we all know what is going on globally now. And we are not going to joke with that. So the other point I will quickly mention is a tool for mapping government payment and customer. This is very key. There are so many robust tools now for government payment, for customer renditions of payment directly to government account. And another thing that is very important is the implementation of roadmap tools. This is another robust tools, because if you have this roadmap and you don't have tools to be able to implement it, it will be a big challenge. And I must say that designing digital products or services to improve accessibility, digital payment services should reach excluded group. There are so many excluded groups in this ecosystem we are talking about, and they should be able to acquire and use this technology without any stress. This is very key. Without proper collaboration, we won't be able to achieve that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, DG. And I'm sure there will be questions to address those. So Angela, please, can you chime in and share with us what are some of the collaboration we can have? Stephen mentioned public and private, and involving all of the different stakeholders to bring solutions. In terms of capacity building, what are these collaboration opportunities that you see?
I think the most essential and mostly underrated cornerstone is dialogue. And that's dialogue between the public sector, private sector, across multiple sectors, and particularly for market-led and market-owned solutions, because these establish sustainability over time. But the reason why I mentioned dialogue is because trust is built over time, and dialogue allows all partners in the process to gauge authenticity of other stakeholders in the room, in one, encouraging, and two, making room for open discussions with the entire value chain, and particularly the service provider. Service providers tend to be left out most of the time, but they are essential for two reasons. One, they own the customer most of the time. They engage customers continuously. They help unravel an understanding of the real and urgent market needs, the current solutions, the gaps, and they reach out for help where alternative solutions are required because perhaps their business model does not accommodate it. And lastly, the second reason is they stimulate continued investment because they're driven by scale and growth of their products. And so it is vital that the ecosystem works together to create an environment that allows innovative commercial business models to emerge that spearhead that domestic digital instant and inclusive payments, because these will allow the market dynamics to achieve some progressive realization of financial inclusion over time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela. Stefan, so what can we do? How can we collaborate to work together and build this gap of capacity that's out there to support inclusive and instant payment systems?
That's an interesting question. But of course, for example, from the bank side, we have very deep relationship with policymakers, regulators, and financial sector stakeholders across the continent. We're supporting several countries in upgrading their payment systems and making them more inclusive. But we also are sometimes learning because we're not always the best experts on the technical side. So working with AfricaNenda, for example, as a partner, especially on the upstream part, and I've discussed this with Robert several times, I actually think it's going to be extremely relevant to us because there's, and alongside GSMA, obviously, and everybody else, what is important is that we do also impress on the authorities the value of this digital transformation, which is going to be, I mean, at the end of the day, COVID was very unfortunate, but it's allowed us to speed up the transformation. And we're leading the world in this transformation. So I'm very pleased to see that AfricaNenda and others maybe like AfricaNenda will exist to help us actually work on the preparatory work, the upstream work for this digitization, because this is where the capacity is lacking. This is where we need support, because this will allow people to see the relevance. And I am very keen on making the regional approaches as effective as possible, because of course, when you see your peers starting to move up the scale, you start running in a lot of cases. And the regional integration is sometimes more difficult than that. I'm referring back to what Angela was mentioning about the dialogue. But crucially, if you start a regional dialogue, it will definitely trickle down to the national authorities, because they'll realize if we don't step up the space, we're going to be left behind. And PAPS is proof of that, because PAPS also has enabled Liberia, Sierra Leone, and the Gambia to now step up to the level of the Nigeria, Ghana in the payment system. So we can be proud of that, and we've got to push for these collaborations to be more effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan, and really appreciate ending on collaboration. And as Robert has mentioned in his initial speech, we are here to support the ecosystem, provide pre-planning support, provide also capacity building wherever the need is. So, and we're looking forward to collaborating with you, the African Development, with the private sector as well, Angela, and of course with DG and all the other actors in the ecosystem. So looking at my colleagues for time, do you have time for questions, or are we moving forward? Yes, moving forward. So thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us. We are really, really grateful for your time and appreciate all the insights you've shared with us. Thank you. Now, time for me to go back to you, Fifi, if you're here with us.
I am. And, thank you to you also, Sabine, for putting together such a wonderful discussion. Thank you, ma'am. I would extend my commentary at this stage, but I am mindful of time. And I would like to apologize to the attendees. I'm mindful of your time. I believe it's almost 7 o'clock in Nairobi, 6 o'clock in South Africa, where I am from. But if you'll just indulge us with just a little bit more of your time, and we will be wrapping up as briefly as possible. At this stage, I would like to invite our partners, or the partners of AfricaNenda, who have journeyed with them to make this possible, and who certainly will continue to stay the course, and that is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as well as the Rockefeller Foundation. Could I please ask Mr. Nick Hodges, who is the Senior Vice President and COO of Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, who's flown in all the way from the US to be here today. Nick, may we please invite you to share a few words, and please do not take any offense when I ask you to be brief, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Esteemed guest, when the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation approached us 2 years ago with the discussion of advancing digital payments for financial inclusion, we were enthusiastic. Part of our mission is to incubate nonprofits and provide infrastructure so that they can focus on their programmatic work. But we knew in launching AfricaNenda that we needed to be very focused, that this be African-led and resourced from its inception. By Africa and for Africa is our North Star. In addition, we knew we needed to be a strong partner to the existing ecosystem and to partners that were already in the space. To that end, we've spent the last 9 months hiring an exceptional team and accepting important feedback from our partners. This has led to this incredible day where we are officially launching AfricaNenda to the public. I want to thank our partners from the Africa Development Bank, Africa Union, UNECA, and the World Bank for all of their feedback during our development and for partnering with us on projects currently and on thought leadership, as well as developing formal relationships. I also want to thank our partners at COMESA and RISA who welcomed us early in our development to provide technical assistance to their important work. You're critical to our shared goal of financially including the poor. Our success will spur other countries, regions, and switches to adopt this work. I also want to thank the leadership and team of AfricaNenda, Robert, Sabine, Wale, Mike, Vanessa, Jackie, Tony, Phil. You're doing incredible work, running at an incredible pace, and I'm really privileged to know you and appreciate that you are lifting up the voices of the poor to be included in digital payments work. In closing, I want to reiterate my thanks to all of you who've been doing this work for so long. Financial inclusion is AfricaNenda's overarching goal, but it's also just a measure. The end goal is prosperity and enabling the poor to contribute their knowledge, skills, and resources to our world's problems. The poor survive in spite of us. The opportunity is for us to release our compassion and bring 500 million people in Africa alone to the table to solve problems that plague us all. Yes, the poor need us, but I contend we need them more. May God bless you one and all. Thank you for allowing us to be on this journey with you.
And thanks once again to you, Nick. I know we have a 400 million problem that we're tackling here, and perhaps it was a bit too ambitious to think that we could, get it going in 2 hours, but nonetheless, time is of the essence. And I'd like to invite our last speaker for the session, Ms. Dilwan Berish Abera, who is the Associate Program Officer at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Ma'am, welcome. The stage is yours to deliver your few and brief words.
Thank you so much, Fifi. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for giving the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation the opportunity to share a few closing remarks. To begin, on behalf of the Financial Services for the Poor program at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and my colleagues on this call, I would like to congratulate AfricaNenda on this very exciting and successful launch event. As Fifi mentioned, my name is Dilwan Berish Abera, originally from Ethiopia and the African continent. I currently serve as a program officer at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Financial Services for the Poor program. At the foundation and the Financial Services for the Poor program, the driving force behind all our grant making is poverty alleviation through digital financial inclusion. Through our support to organizations like AfricaNenda and other partners, we aspire towards a world where fewer people slide into poverty, more people move out of poverty, and the gender gap in access and usage has been eliminated. Yet, as Dr. Chola mentioned, more than 400 million adults in Africa, the majority of them women, remain financially excluded and cut out from the formal sector. At the same time, studies show that nearly 70% of excluded Africans, adult Africans, have access to a mobile phone and can be easily served through mobile money and digital financial services, a homegrown solution, pioneered by Africans for Africa. We believe that the continent has all the solutions at hand to achieve a world where through interconnected, interoperable, instant and inclusive payment and ID systems, 100% of African adults can obtain access to an entry-level transaction account, enabling them to send and receive money from anyone immediately and at close to zero cost, all from simple mobile phones. We believe that AfricaNenda is well positioned to provide the right level of technical assistance and capacity building support to public and private sector project owners, looking to scale and accelerate instant and inclusive payment systems across the continent. Let me end by saying that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is proud and honored to support AfricaNenda in its work to promote instant and inclusive payment systems. Together, we can achieve our common goal of empowering women and the poor to lift themselves out of poverty through digital financial services. Congratulations again and on this official launch, and thank you.
And thank you, ma'am, for those remarks. And to officially close off the session, we are sort of ending in a similar fashion as we did start, because I would like to invite Dr. Robert Ochola back to join us to officially close the session. Robert?
Thank you very much, Fifi. I know we're running out of time, so I'll try and keep it brief, but I think just to close, on behalf of the whole entire AfricaNenda family, it is with great humility that I take this opportunity to thank all of you for joining us in celebrating the launch of AfricaNenda. I think it is indeed for me a watershed moment, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. AfricaNenda is going to be a learning institution, and the experience today has been extremely insightful. Being in the presence of prominent experts and leaders who are committed to contributing to financial inclusion, women empowerment, and indeed expansion of affordable and interoperable instant and inclusive payment systems across our continent is truly humbling. As we reflect on the critical issues that have been raised this evening, I'd like to confirm to you that AfricaNenda will aspire to fill the gaps of information, deployment, and indeed best practice sharing on instant and inclusive payment systems across Africa. Indeed, we've already commenced detailed research to understand the landscape and extent of the deployments for instant and inclusive payment systems across the continent. A preliminary report has been developed and is actually available on our website. We intend to develop this report further and carry out extensive assessment. And to this point, to this end, we urge on various partners and project owners who are executing or plan to execute such projects to join us and share some of the information that can help us build up this knowledge. We know that knowledge is power, and the sharing of knowledge and best practice will be imperative as we endeavor to shift the dynamics of payments in our markets. AfricaNenda will continue to focus on driving capacity building of instant and inclusive payment systems in Africa through the development of tools, as well as facilitating knowledge sharing forums and digital payments training. We shall kick this off by doing a detailed market assessment needs as we build a roadmap for implementation. We therefore encourage central banks, government agencies, private sector associations to participate actively in this process. Finally, I also call on you to join us today and all industry practitioners to join our community of practice. You can sign up actually on our website and we'll get back to you quite quickly. As I close, it will be remiss of me not to just give a final vote of thanks to various stakeholders who have made this event a complete success. Let me start off by recognizing Ms. Maureen Mbaka, who joined us earlier today. I'd also like to thank the COMESA Business Council, starting off with their chairman, the vice chairperson, who is also a good friend of mine. I also would like to recognize the board member, Mr. Mushai, who was also here. I would also take this opportunity to thank my dear sister, who I believe is online, and friend, the CEO, Madame Sandra Uwera. Thank you so much for your support and continued trust in the work that we're doing. Director General of WAMI, thank you, sir, for your participation. We hope to continue to expand our intervention within the West African Monetary Zone through your leadership. The Chief Executive of Rwanda Information Society Authority, Innocent, thank you very much. Indeed, let us strengthen the core so things don't fall apart. Thank you very much for that very powerful message and for the continued partnership. Ms. Esther Kunda, thank you very much, Director General, for joining us today, traveling all the way from Kigali. I know it was a very early flight, but thank you, and we continue to call on your support. And do please pass our warmest and sincerest regards to the Minister, Ms. Paula Ingabire. A mentor, coach, and friend, Mr. Stephen Nalitambi. Thank you so much, sir, for your interventions today and for sharing your thoughts. We continue to call on your wise counsel as we steer this new ship. I fondly recall you mentioning that we are sailors, so we hope to continue sailing with all the turbulence that will come with. My dear friend and sister, Angela, thank you for those insights. It's always good to engage, and I'm very happy that our paths have crossed again, and we look forward to engaging with you as we build and continue the collaboration. Nick, I must thank you once again. Your kind words today. Thank you for your support, and we'll continue to rely on you, and your unwavering support has taken us this far. And I know with this momentum that we've built, we can only continue to grow and actually make a big impact. Thank you. And my dear sister, Segi, I know you've been hiding there, but I'm going to call on you and say thank you, and please pass our regards to Sarah and the whole Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisory family. Dilly, thank you for your kind words and continued guidance as we dig deep into these issues. Please pass my gratitude to David and Costa. Our board director, Manal, thank you for joining us all the way from Cairo. It's a real pleasure to have you. And today we're already starting engaging on some of the issues. We'll only look forward to building from that. Our Master of Ceremony, Fifi Peters, thank you so much for taking time yesterday and also for agreeing to join us today. I think your input today and the way you've steered this ship, I think the 2 hours have gone so quickly and very engaging. So thank you. It would be remiss of me not to also thank the members of the Fourth Estate who have been here today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to the unsung heroes, the Dalberg Media and the teams behind that, the support and curating this whole event, which of course it sounds easy today, but when you're talking about hybrid and physical events and to sort of execute this flawlessly, we are grateful. I'd also take the moment to thank the leadership team of AfricaNenda. Thank you for your wise counsel and support, and of course the greater AfricaNenda family. It was remiss of me not to mention Phil earlier on. I think that presentation was done earlier, so forgive me, but thank you. You'll continue to be a key member of the team. So as I end, I'm truly indebted to all of you. What a fruitful and inspiring engagement session. We look forward to deepening our partnership and making a change one person at a time. God bless all of you. Thank you.